Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to my channel for another Hot Toys 1/6 scale Thor Love and Thunder figure unboxing and review. Today we're taking a look at Jane Foster's Mighty Thor. Now I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I have popped a link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, so you're notified as soon as a brand new Hot Toys MCU figure review goes live on the channel. As for the box art, I reckon this is my favourite of the line so far. It's just so rock and roll. We've got the lens flares and the lightning and the colours. It's a lot of fun to look at. We've got a glossy Thor Love and Thunder logo, an image of Natalie Portman in costume. Unfortunately, that is not the figure herself. A foil special edition sticker, and down below, the Mighty Thor in metallic silver foil. On the side of the box, we have a little bit of the goat boat down below, and then the cracked, reassembled version of Mjolnir in Jane's hand that's just spilling over the edge from the front cover. And then, around the back, a bolt of lightning straight down the middle, separating the two halves of the box. Using the white core of the lightning to blend it in with the panel that has the warnings and legal information on it, then adding the blue glow over the top, I actually really like that effect. Then we have a logo off to the other side. I'm starting to think this must be her logo in the comics. It wasn't established as such in the movie, but I've never read a Mighty Thor comic, so I simply don't know. If you do, and you have, can you please just weigh in down in the comments below? Making the slipcover out of translucent tinted plastic and frosting it a little is a really interesting choice for the Love and Thunder line, because you get a sneak preview of the figure underneath, but it still adds some suspense to the unboxing experience. I'm hoping now that this line is technically complete, Jane was the last figure we were waiting for from it, that doesn't mean the end of the translucent plastic slipcovers. I would like to see them continue using them on future MCU releases. First in-hand impressions for Mighty Thor? So far so good. I'm loving how solid this body feels, and of course, that head sculpt. What we're going to do now is get all of Jane's accessories laid out in the light box and take a closer look at everything she comes with. Starting off with the display base first, which is, in keeping with the rest of the line, done in this low-profile, compact, hexagonal form factor. We've got a glossy, cracked Mjolnir logo and a glossy movie logo up on top, whereas the background is done in more of a matte, textured, grippy finish. For the nameplate, they've used the Thor Love and Thunder font, but they've printed it at an angle and it's off-center. I'm not sure why they're struggling so hard these days with their base nameplates. Up top, there is a flight pole and a spring-loaded waist clamp, but please don't use this. This is going to dig into Mighty Thor's suit and do irreversible damage over time. So she does come wearing the unhelmeted head sculpt out of the box, and we will try out both head sculpts and both helmets on her a little bit later. For now, just know that we do also get a helmeted sculpt, and the helmet looks absolutely gorgeous in this shiny metallic gunmetal. If you opt for the special edition, this is the bonus, a cracked helmet which, yes, can be displayed on this sculpt. Dude, I reckon it's special edition or bust. That cracked helmet is badass. Now we also get two different versions of Mjolnir. This one we have seen before, and the lightning effect is detachable if you don't like it there. It comes with this metal spacer bracket piece on it. That's totally removable. You can just ditch that if you don't like the look of it. This is the light-up version of Mjolnir. I would have preferred the die-cast one, just because it feels like a proper shrunk-down version of Thor's hammer. This is quite lightweight, but the light-up effect is pretty cool, I guess. Unfortunately, it runs on button cell batteries. That's the I guess part of it. It is going to die very quickly. This strap feels more sturdy than usual. I think that they have changed the material from pleather to something else. We'll just have to wait and see. Most of my Thor figures have deteriorating straps on their Mjolnirs. This is meant to look like she's shooting these chunks of Mjolnir out of the base part of the hammer. It is interesting to look at, but it's also quite a droopy mess. We will discuss this in the pros and cons segment a little bit later. They have added some metallic paint to the lightning, which does help it pop. And lastly, a full array of hands, ranging from open palm hands with some leather grain texture and wrinkling on the palms, then armor plating on the back, plus skin texture for the fingers, to gripping hands. They are made of a soft rubbery plastic, so prying them open to insert Mjolnir on the inside shouldn't be a massive issue. And then two closed fists already installed on her out of the box. What we're going to do now is get Mighty Thor herself out here. Standing straight up and down in the light box, no crazy poses or accessories or anything like that. They pulled out all the stops for Mighty Thor. Seamless medical silicon arms, multiple head sculpts both with moving eyes, and the LED Mjolnir. This is clearly the Love and Thunder line's crown jewel, and I'm not mad at that one bit. They nailed the proportions, and having seen the actual screen-used outfit in person, I can confidently say they nailed that too. It all looks spot on to me. Some of the material choices are a bit funky, and they struggled with their usual Achilles heel, the cape. The rest is smooth sailing. I cannot wait to finish this review, pose her up, and put her in the cabinet alongside the other Love and Thunder releases. Up close and personal, kicking things off with Jane's first head sculpt. We will try out the helmeted options in just a moment. But first, the number one question that's been on my mind ever since she was announced is this the same sculpt as Padme's, just with longer blonde hair? Now that I have both in hand, absolutely not. It's a brand new sculpt. It looks similar to Padme, and that's just because they're both supposed to be Natalie Portman. The nose is skinnier with Jane, the chin sits lower, and the jawline is sharper. The eyebrows are a little bit higher, and then the hairline is, of course, completely different. The skin texture is sculpted and painted for Jane, whereas for Padme, the skin is more just smooth on the surface, and they've relied on paint to sell that speckled skin texture effect. There's some blush on her cheeks, the freckles or moles are both present, and the best part, she's got moving eyes. We will talk about that in more detail in just a minute. The hair has flow to it, the individual strands are made of rubbery plastic, plenty of texture, but because it is sculpted, articulation will be more limited. Just something to be aware of. Yes, I would have liked an artisan option for Jane with rooted hair. Still, I can't deny that this looks fantastic. One of the best parts about going sculpted for the hair is that you don't have to do anything with it. You don't have to style it, you don't have to futz it. It's always going to look like this right out of the box. It lays perfectly and it frames the head sculpt exactly as it should. Usually with rooted hair, some styling is going to be required because a big part of capturing someone's likeness is getting the hairstyle right. And if you're not confident with styling, like I'm not, then yeah, you may struggle. With this, no issues whatsoever. Now, she does have ears underneath the front part of the hair, and they've fully sculpted and painted and detailed the inside of the back part as well. On the underside, they've used this bespoke clip mechanism to attach the head sculpt to the body, and each eyeball is individually articulated. So if you did want to get goofy with the eye positioning, you absolutely could. Now, I personally prefer to have them looking up ever so slightly. Out of the box, they were just looking straight forward and smack bang in the middle, but that gave her a really creepy, weird look, so maybe just work with angles and find the eye position that works best for you. You see, that's why I'm such a big advocate for moving eyes on every figure, because with them off to the side combined with a head tilt, thanks to the furrowed brow, now she looks even more badass. If you find that there's a particular angle that showcases the likeness the best, for Jane, in my opinion, it's a 3/4 turn, you can move the eyes off to the side, meet that angle, and work with the sculpt so that it looks as good as possible in your display. I'm not so sure about this one. I was really excited about the helmeted sculpt. I thought that this was the way I was going to go for my Mighty Thor. Now that I'm seeing it on the body, yeah, maybe not. The likeness just isn't coming through for me, and I think the issues are that the eyes are too big, the smirk throws it off, and the chin is narrower and pointier as compared to the other one. I'm fully aware that most of her face is covered by a helmet, still, you should be able to tell that this is Natalie Portman. Something that I haven't mentioned yet, the skin tone and skin texture match between the sculpts and the neck, even though this is made out of a silicon material where these are PVC, is spot on for both of them, so there's not going to be a skin tone or skin texture mismatch. For the helmeted sculpt, the hair is less full around the front. These strands are still made out of rubbery plastic. So maybe we'll be able to get more articulation when she has this head sculpt on. Around the back, this is just as full as this one. In fact, it's probably the exact same sculpt for that back hair piece. Let's see if we can't get that likeness to show through by moving the eyes around. It's done in the same way as the unhelmeted sculpt, except with this one, the opening on the underside is a lot smaller, so maybe using your finger isn't the best option. The included tool might be the way to go. Now that we have moved them off to the side, the likeness is better. It's coming through more with this eye position for me, but it's still not perfect. If I ever was to rock her wearing the helmet, I'd go with something like this, some side-eye. Most of the time, she's just going to have the unhelmeted head sculpt on. Now, I apologize in advance for what I'm about to show you. When you remove her helmet, you're left with a creepy looking bald Natalie Portman. To install the battle damaged one, I have separated it just to make my life a little bit easier when doing this on camera, but you can attempt to slide it over the top of the sculpt if you so choose. Snapping the helmet together, with this part of her face now exposed, that does look like Natalie Portman. So even though it's not flawless with the full helmet on, the battle damaged one does help it shine through. Quite literally, because the face is now a lot more visible when she's wearing this. Oh, this just looks sick. The winged helmet that's shiny and metallic with the red accents and then the battle damage off to one side. It's more visually interesting this way. The full helmet is nice to have, but it's just not my preferred option. Back to the unhelmeted sculpt. I did try to put Padme's head on this body, but the little neck connector thing is subtly different enough so that it simply isn't compatible. How's the cape, though? You see, Hot Toys have struggled for the longest time with superhero capes, and I don't know why, because this is one of the easiest things to get right. It's literally just a piece of fabric. All they have to do is make sure they're using a thin and lightweight red fabric, and there's enough of it so that it drapes well. They didn't do that. It's far too bulky and it's 2-ply, and it's not wired everywhere. There's wires on the outside edges, these inside spines, but not along the bottom, and also not over the top for the shoulders. I like to flare the cape out and give her the suggestion of bulky shoulder pads, but the wires end right around here, so you can't shape it and you can't get it to sit right. Underneath it, there's some detail for the armor, and you can see this back part of the skirt, which has been screen printed, and there's a lot of texture on the surface. I don't want to make it sound like it's awful, it isn't, it's serviceable, but if Jackson Ju or someone else makes a custom cape for this figure, it looks quite straightforward to switch out, as though it's plugged in underneath these silver discs which are hidden by her front hair pieces. So I'll be keeping an eye out for custom capes, is what I'm trying to say. Now, this front armor plating is made of rubbery plastic and it extends down to her belt area. This is all one piece. The side panels where you can see the cutouts, that's a rubbery style fabric. It's the same stuff they've used for the pants, and we'll get there in just a second. All of the discs are painted in this shiny metallic silver, and this is just Hot Toys flexing. They're the best at what they do when it comes to painting plastic to look like metal. The sheen and the depth and the washes in the sculpt work that bring out all of the detail and make them look metallic enough so that it's convincing. Yeah, I've got no complaints with how any of this armor is painted. Okay, let's talk about the silicone arms because they're using medical silicone once again, and this stuff is perfect for figures because it's quite soft and squishy. There's an air gap between the skin and then the metal arm on the inside, so there's enough room for it to flex and not put pressure on the material on the outside so it doesn't crack. Plus, when it wrinkles, that, to me, looks like real human skin. It's almost a little bit creepy. You'll see what I mean when you get this figure in hand and you feel this for the first time. There is skin texture on the surface, and a super subtle mold line that isn't really all that noticeable from a distance. Up close, more so. The gauntlets are free floating, but there's no friction. They just slide around on the surface. So by moving them, I don't think you're going to do any damage to the paint applications on the silicone arms. And they're plugged in separately to the torso, so you can move them out or forward and back, and you're not going to put any pressure on the silicone because they're not attached to the silicone upper torso neck piece. The skirt does have a lot of detail on it. We've got the screen printing around the back, which we've already discussed, and that continues on the side panels and the front one. I don't love the material choice because it's quite thin and it's curling up on itself. I will try steaming it just a touch to try and get it to sit down the way it's supposed to. The pants are made of stretchy spandex and a rubbery material. This being used for the high traffic areas is brilliant because that means it'll stretch and you don't have to worry about creasing or damage. This stuff, while it looks like pleather with the stitching and the leather grain, it isn't. It feels more robust and sturdy, like a Hot Toys Spider-Man suit versus something that was more fragile, such as their old school 1.0 version of Dark Knight Rises Catwoman. She used a lot of pleather on her outfit. The knee pads are separate floating pieces. These are elastic straps. So if you find when you bend her knees they sit too low, you can adjust them and move them up accordingly. These boots might be some of my favorite bits of modern MCU costume design work because the wings on the outside with the rivets and then the red panel lining detail plus more of it around the back and the shiny metallic silver, they're so rock and roll, and yeah, I cannot get over how good these look. There's some armor plates on the bottom part of the high-heeled boot, which does make it look like this is one piece because there's a seam here, but it isn't. This is a split cut boot design. Hiding the cut just above this armor plate, blending it in with that seam, brilliant. There isn't any sculpted tread on the underside, and the heel is skinny, so you may have to spend a little bit longer trying to get her to stand. Find the center of balance, you're going to be perfectly fine. For a quick side-by-side comparison, on the left, Mighty Thor, and on the right, Normal Thor. IRL, Natalie Portman is 5'3" versus Chris Hemsworth's 6'3". So in figure format, there should definitely be a noticeable height difference between the two. There is, but still I think Mighty Thor is overscaled. I'm okay with it because in my headcanon, when she transforms into Thor, she not only gets buffer, but she gets a little bit taller. Plus, she's got the thick, chonky, high-heeled boots on. Seeing these two standing together makes me so freaking happy, man. I've waited for ages to see Natalie Portman on the big screen as Mighty Thor. And while the movie itself was kind of disappointing for most, She kicked ass, and having her now in 1/6 scale, I can forget all about that movie and I can just look at the figure standing next to Chris Hemsworth's Thor in his bright, colourful costume. While it seems like the designs would clash because they're both very busy, they're busy in different ways. And with them both wearing the pleated bright red capes, that's the one anchor that ties both of these looks together and brings out the shared design similarities. So this is awkward. Remember when I said they like to underscale their female figures? Tessa Thompson is 5'4". She's actually taller than Natalie Portman, and she's got the thick-soled boots on. So in figure format, she should be the larger of the two figures, and she isn't. Does that bother me? Yeah, a little. I prefer my figures to be as accurate as possible, and Mighty Thor just towers over King Valkyrie. Next up, Gore the God Butcher. I wish we saw more of this guy. We didn't actually get to see him do much in the way of god butchering. In 1/6 scale, he is taller than Mighty Thor. Bear in mind, I have him hunched over. I just didn't want to ruin the pose for this comparison segment. Going over articulation, I decided to stick with the long hair head sculpt for this segment just because this is going to be her at her most restricted. Starting off with the head sculpt, it's on a rubbery neck and a double ball peg, looking forward to there, actually further than I expected, honestly, going up to there, swivel, and pivot side to side. Her arms are pegged in separately at the shoulders on ball pegs, so that means we can articulate them without stressing out the silicone. Going forward and back, do watch out for the hair though, going up to there, they're on butterfly joints that hinge up and down. There is a swivel under the silicone skin, but it's hard to access without bending the elbow because the silicone just moves around on you. I would suggest bending the elbow first and then using the forearm as some leverage to move that bicep swivel. We do get a double bend at the elbow, and then for the wrist peg, it's a hinge and swivel. I'm not expecting much from the torso. This sculpted plastic armor is going to get in the way. Crunching forward to there, going back to there, the waist joint is doing pretty much all of the heavy lifting. Swivel and pivot side to side. Her legs will go forward to there, going out to there, swivel at the upper thigh. Single bend at the knee, getting you to almost 90. And lastly, for the ankles, instead of a double ball peg, we've got a hinge and swivel. Think a massive wrist peg. So currently it's set up for forward and back and rotation. But if you want ankle tilt, you have to rotate the joint inside the boot and then it'll go side to side. Moving on to the 3 cool and 3 annoying things. The first annoying thing is, I know I've complained about this in the past, I'm never going to stop fighting for as much value as possible. Especially when they're already producing crotch grabbers at the same factory as these display bases anyway, and it costs them practically nothing to include. They know full well that, number one, these bases are compatible with crotch grabbers, and number two, people simply don't use the flight poles long term because these waist clamps dig into figures' outfits over time. If a base is compatible with both a crotch grabber and a flight pole, I expect to see both options in the box. The second annoying thing is this is a sick idea for an effect part on paper. In practice, because they made the lightning out of this rubbery stuff so you don't have to worry about breakage, it's more flexible than brittle, it becomes this floppy, saggy, flaccid mess. Yes, it can support itself at certain angles, but you can see it's slowly starting to droop down and it sags in the middle. If this was made out of a sturdier plastic, it would have been more fragile, but at least it would have been displayable. The third annoying thing is whatever the hell they made this skirt out of was a terrible material choice because it doesn't hug the body or lay flat, it sticks out and it curls up on itself. The first cool thing is they're continuing to use medical silicone for their seamless arms. This stuff is just the best there is. It's soft and supple feeling. There's an air gap between the outer skin and the metal endoskeleton inside the arm. Plus, when it wrinkles and creases, it looks like real-life human skin would. The reason it's so realistic is because this stuff is used for actual people prosthetics, so it needs to be durable and paintable so that they can match people's skin tones. That's how they were able to capture this much muscle tone and skin texture and definition on the surface of the silicon arms. The second cool thing is we get two stellar Natalie Portman Mighty Thor head sculpts, one with the helmet and one without. The third cool thing is we technically get two versions of the cracked and then reassembled Mjolnir. So if you want to give this one to Thor and the other to Mighty Thor, then you could foreseeably have both of them displayed holding this version of Mjolnir. Wrapping up on Hot Toys Mighty Thor. A great figure that's part of a solid line from an unfortunately mediocre movie. I had fun with it, but a lot of people didn't. And the worst part about that is folks are going to pass on this killer figure just because they didn't enjoy the movie that she appeared in. What a shame, honestly, because this is easily the best figure in the line. It's a love letter to Thor and Mighty Thor fans. Moving eyes on both sculpts is what sets this over the top for me. I just can't look at figures without moving eyes the same way anymore. I do wish that Valkyrie and Thor had them, seeing as though they're all supposed to be part of the same line, but I'm getting sidetracked. Back to Mighty Thor. She is light on accessories if you don't count the helmets, and even more so if you go for the non-special edition version. Do yourself a favor and cop that one. The battle-damaged helmet is dope. The quality of the outfit and the realistic proportions and how seamless she is from head to toe more than makes up for the lack of accessories for me personally. At the end of this, I am happy with how this figure turned out, but the line itself has been a real rollercoaster ride for me. Notable downs have been the eyes for Thor and Valkyrie, just mentioned that, and the non-seamless gore. The ups though, this entire figure, moving eyes for Gore, and medical silicon all round. Not home runs for every figure they've released for Love and Thunder, but at least every single one of them turned out better than the movie they appeared in. Now, I got mine at a discount from Pop Collectibles. As always, do your own research, make sure you're comfortable before buying. I have popped a link to their site in the description below, along with the discount code Justin's Collection, for 5% off your order if you do decide to buy from them. While you're down there, why not hit that subscribe, bell notification icon, and join button, if you like the sound of seeing your name in the end credits of my reviews. Like, comment, and subscribe. We'll catch you in the next video.